Hey, good morning, Eastern Oregon, and welcome to this May 21st version of AM Live on EOA, your connection to Eastern Oregon and on the EOA network. And here in just a bit, we're going to have Isaac Insko and Calvin Bennett, EOU student political junkies, with us here. So, yeah.
Political junkies.
Political junkies, yeah. So, kind of like sports junkies.
First Friday.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not First Friday yet, dang it. I was hoping it was. It's second Monday.
This is Tuesday, man. Yeah. Yeah.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah.
Busy day today, though. What do we got? I got senior awards banquet tonight where I'll present the two athletes with their scholarship. And then it's election night. LeGrand has playoff games in softball and baseball. It's just a busy day today.
When are the? Yeah, I guess you'll talk about those games. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, May 21st. It's been kind of a day that's been hanging out there for a while.
Yeah, we'll go live tonight, probably 10 minutes, 5 minutes till 8 from the courthouse, the clerk's office, and the new Union County clerk is going to join me, and she's going to talk numbers as of 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, doesn't necessarily mean anything per se because they'll still have a lot of ballots to count. But, I mean, we can get a general idea if somebody's way out in front in something, we'll know,
Yeah.
what the outcome will be most likely. Not a good turnout so far, though. I talked to her yesterday, and she said that people aren't coming out to vote.
Huh. Well, and that we kind of knew that going into this primary, since there's not a national election that is attached to it, then people are just less likely to.
Which is dumb. Local politics is so much more important than that yahoo that sits in Washington, D.C. That guy, you know what I mean?
Right.
That's just the face.
Right. Yep.
At least here, these are people that are working for your concerns.
Yep.
A president, you can't call him and say, hey, Scarfo, make something happen on this, the fairground deal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just...
Yeah.
It's
the
opposite of...
I couldn't agree more. But what's funny is that as I've gone through, and we'll talk about this when the other guys join us, is that I have often been that person that never picked up my ballot until just
today.
The day of.
Yeah.
And so now Tanya is at the opposite end of the spectrum. When she gets the ballot, she opens it.
It doesn't matter when you do it as long as you do it.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do it 2 weeks, or whenever you got it, you could do it 7:55 if
Right.
you have to.
Well, 5 o'clock is the cutoff.
Is it 5?
Yeah. So for those of you that have not voted, you still can vote. Find your ballot.
5 o'clock is the cutoff, so why are we waiting until 8?
I would imagine because that gives them 3 hours to
Get a count going.
start a count.
Has it always been 5? I thought 8 o'clock was the...
No. 5 is when they close the. That's when there's collection boxes throughout the county.
And they
that
close
bring
them all
in.
down?
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
So, but the exception of that is if they're postmarked, they have to be postmarked by the day. So then there might be
they'll come in a day or two
there might be
late.
some ballots that will dribble in for,
Well, and then you also
week.
have people that are out of the country that their ballots can come in, I think up to 2 weeks late or something like that.
Yeah.
If you're in the military or...
But most of the time...
The commissioner race might be down to a couple votes. You know what I mean?
No, I've said that all along. It's there could be, there could be 2 or 3% difference between the top the top 5.
For sure.
It could be super slim.
For sure.
Super strange.
Yep.
So anyhow, you want to talk about sports?
Let's do it.
All right.
AM Sports Report brought to you by Northwest Furniture and Mattress. Discover exceptional home furnishing solutions at Northwest Furniture and Mattress, the premier furniture store in LeGrand. From cozy bedrooms to elegant spaces, they have the perfect pieces to keep you comfortable in every room of your home. Visit them today and elevate your living space. Big thanks to Northwest Furniture and Mattress. They've been with me on the sports show since Well, since before I even started the sports show here, they were with Johnny and I when we did the Johnny Ball Game show, and sure do appreciate them. LHS softball plays
Estacada.
Yeah, right.
That's normally what I do.
Today at 3:30 here. It's a home game for the Tigers. The boys baseball team goes on the road and plays Scappoose. If the girls win, they play the winner of Pendleton and North Bend on the 24th, which is crazy. Like, you're going to meet your rival from your own conference in the second round of the playoffs. I hate how OSA does the... Don't get me started on that. And if the boys win, they play the winner of Hidden Valley and Junction City on the 24th as well. LHS track and field boys and girls teams both walked away from the weekend with fourth place finishes. It was weird. The girls were in seventh at the end of the meet, but then they added on the para scores. So apparently at the high school, and I haven't heard this, we have some para athletes. And they gained 4 points because of that. So they ended up moving all the way up into fourth for the girls.
I'm sorry, what's a para athlete?
Somebody who's, like paralyzed or disabled.
Okay.
Like, have you heard of the Paralympics?
Right. But
yeah.
Okay.
It means like maybe missing a leg or
right.
some sort of physical disability.
Okay.
Blind.
Okay.
And there are blind people that run track. It's crazy. They have a guide that they attach their wrists to, and they just run together. It's crazy. Austin Uhl stole the show for the Tiger boys, winning both the 800 and the 1500. He broke the school and the state record in the 800 in this meet, and he set the meet record, which is crazy. I had him on my sports show for football, and he's new. He just moved here this year. He's the baseball coach at EOU's stepson. And I had no idea he was fast, but I mean, that's fast. 153.64 in the 800 is flying for a high school kid. Brooke Perry repeated as the state champion for LeGrand in the 3000, which is really cool. Imbler track and field had a great weekend too. The boys won the state championship and the girls finished second. Peyton Brassett won the state championship in the 800 and the 3000 and was a member of the 4x400 relay team that won. And then Trevor Treat had a great meet too. He won both the hurdles, the 110 and the 300, and he was also a member of the 4x400 team that won the state championship for Imbler. That's a pretty good weekend for
awesome.
local sports. EOU track and field's TJ Davis was named the West Region Field Athlete of the Year, while Ben Welsh and Connor Bracken were named West Region Head Coach and Assistant Coach of the Year. The NAIA Track Nationals start tomorrow in Marion, Indiana. The men go into the meet ranked number 13 in the country, while the women are 17th. EOU qualified a whopping 25 athletes for nationals. That's a lot of people. I mean, granted, 2 of those are relay teams, but at the same time, we had a really good year in track and field. That's AM Sports Report, brought to you by Northwest Furniture and Mattress, Big Red Rocking Chair on L, Moth Adams in LeGrand.
All right. So the para finals.
Paralympic, the para state meet.
Is that
I don't even know when it was. It happened
that's
before.
what I'm trying to confuse. Yeah. So,
I think I had no idea that they even added the points on.
So then they had those finals at a separate place, or maybe a separate time, and then that is accumulated.
Yeah, LeGrand got 4 points somehow, and I read a thing where it said LeGrand was in 7th and they moved up to 4th because of 4 para points.
Huh. All right.
I'll have to do a little digging and see who, I didn't even know we had any para athletes at LeGrand. But I mean, it's not uncommon. I mean, and apparently I didn't even know Oregon, like the high school, OSAA, had a para state meet at all. I had no idea. That's brand new to me. Oh, it's at the same time. Comby says it's at the same time. So it runs at the same time as the state track meet. But I've never been to one, so because my oldest daughter, she did track for middle school, but then she stopped in high school. So I've never had a kid that, and I've never been to a state meet. So I don't. That's a lot of teams in one place at one time. They do it all levels, all the way through. And track and field teams are big. Obviously why they have to have it at Hayward.
Yeah. Have you ever been to that event, that state event?
I've never been to any track and field state stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine. Yeah. Because even normal track meets are like, hey, there's an event here, and there's an event. I mean, it's like,
I tried taking pictures of
right,
it.
yeah, right. And so I can only imagine if you have all of those classes. Is that what you call the different?
Yeah,
all of those classes,
classifications, yep.
classification high schools in one's place, all those sports.
Yeah, it's. I'll tell you what's harder: wrestling.
Yeah.
Wrestling is dang near impossible.
Right, and I see that, but
you're watching your phone, you're watching all the boards scuttling back and forth.
But it's similar in the sense you have all of those schools, all of those weight classes.
Yeah,
yeah, and
all the
happening
levels
simultaneously. Yeah.
Let's have 12 mats, and you can figure out where somebody's wrestling.
Yeah.
Same thing, track and field, but at least on track and field, there's only one track.
Right.
There's not 12 of them.
Right.
You don't have to you know what I mean? But that's where technology comes in big time for the wrestling meet.
Yeah.
With the phone, with the app.
Yeah.
I know exactly who's wrestling next, who's wrestling, what mat they're wrestling on, and you can filter it to where it only shows you your wrestlers. So I filtered it down to LeGrand and my son, and I had it just so it would pop up the next time LeGrand was wrestling, and then the next time. Oh, my son signed his, he decided where he's going to school. He's going to Umpqua. He's going to wrestle at Umpqua.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's kind of a last minute, I don't know what convinced him. But there's a girl from Dallas that wrestles there who's his friend. And she was a senior last year. This was her freshman year. And he decided he wanted to wrestle instead of play football. So good for him.
Yeah.
I support him either way. I told him that. It doesn't matter. It's even further away from Dallas. You know what I mean? It's even further for me now.
I was going to say, I don't even know where Umpqua is.
It's in Roseburg.
Okay.
So it's like a 2.5 hour drive from where they live now.
Yeah.
And then, it's a long drive from here. 7 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. Don't really like that. But the good thing is they wrestle EOU every year. They wrestle in the Mountaineer Open. So.
Oh, good.
Yep.
So you get to see him that way?
I'm going to see him more than that. I'm going to try to travel a little bit and watch him. We'll see. It just kind of depends on what's going on for him and for me. But, that's the plan.
Good deal. All right, well, let's look outside. It was pretty on the way to work today.
It's cold.
Yeah.
A little bit cold.
It's been a little chilly. It was chilly in the evening after the sun went down last night.
Yeah, it got all the way down into the 30s last night.
Did it? Yeah. It felt like... Yeah, we were setting.
I turned the AC off.
We were sitting on some friend's porch outside, and man, when that dropped over the mountain, it got cold quick. So let's look at the weather. So 66 today, 45 tonight. And it looks like that's maybe some showers tomorrow.
Ugh.
And maybe there's some showers this weekend. But we're kind of.
There's supposed to be rain today too.
It's not going to be very warm. Maybe it looks like it warms up at the beginning of next week.
Monday the 27th.
Yeah.
That Monday the 27th means 2 months until Shrine.
Yeah.
2 months.
Which we're gearing up. If you are a business or an organization and you are interested in regional advertising, the Shrine football game that we do in Baker City on the 27th of July this year is a great regional statewide event to be advertising in. And so please consider that, or if you know some people that should be advertising at, or if they have a business. A lot of people have businesses in multiple towns, and then that's
I was right. You can turn ballots in until 8. Donna
really?
Beveridge just said that. Yeah, yep. I knew 8 o'clock was the time, because I've been there at the clerk's office the last 3 years in a row, and it's always 8. Robin was always like, well, not until after 8, because that's when you can turn.
That makes more sense. That makes more sense. Yeah, thanks for that.
I wonder, but I think they keep the boxes open too until 8. I don't think they close. I remember people going out at 8 o'clock, going out into the parking lot.
Okay.
to empty the boxes. So.
Yeah.
But I think they make like a trip like every half an hour out there to grab them so they can count. You know what I mean? Because they're counting beforehand. I think.
Yeah. Well, they must start counting. I mean, I don't know.
She had a number yesterday, so she didn't give me the number, but the percentage shows they've already started counting.
Yeah. I don't know. That would make a lot of sense.
Well, or at least they have counted the amount of ballots that have been turned in. Maybe they.
Yeah. Well, just the manual work of undoing so they got to undo every.
They have a whole room full of people.
Right.
BC,
They
though.
undo the ballot. They've got to compare the signature to what's on record.
That's the hardest part.
Right. Yeah.
By far.
What's funny is every time. Yeah. So when I started, the business that is on Brent Clapp Productions, that really is my real signature. And so when I use that real signature, when I started the business, it's like, I really should change the signature that I use to sign checks, and so it changed. And so then every year when I fill out my ballot, it's like, man, I wonder what signature do I have on record?
It's like me trying to remember passwords around this place.
Yeah.
My goodness.
That's not.
Oh, God.
That is, yeah.
There's 87 passwords.
Well, and the two-step verification that is now being piled on every account is like, you've got to be kidding. Yeah. So it's exhausting. Well, all right. Hey, so we're going to take a break real quick, and when we come back, we'll be Isaac Insko and Calvin Bennett will be joining with us. We'll be talking about Election Day and what's going on today, and maybe talk about why the voter turnout is not as much as what it has been in the past. And if you haven't voted yet, there still is the opportunity to go find your ballot and drop it off. We'll be back right after this. All right, we're back. Calvin and Isaac, how are you guys, man?
Doing great. Happy to be back here again. Another election day.
Not too long ago. Yeah. You're not as much on the hot seat as you were last time when I was grilling you guys, kind of the way that you were grilling those candidates. Yeah.
Yeah.
But hey, so Calvin, you said when we were offline, you said that you actually had helped count ballots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So back in Wheeler County, so where I'm from, Mitchell, Oregon, we actually counted ballots, or I was counting ballots in 2020. And so how that process works is make sure to drop your ballot off either at the post office, have it postmarked before 8 p.m. on Election Day, or have it in the ballot box at 8 p.m. on Election Day. So this year, I know the county clerk is hiring people to drive around to all the little towns in Wheeler County, which is 3. It's a pretty small county. And they're going to go pick them up right exactly at 8 p.m. So everyone that turned in their ballots last minute, like I do every year, will make sure they get their ballots in. And so that happens, they come in. The signature process that we talked about actually happens primarily beforehand. So the clerk will sit down with a couple other people, check signatures. And so one of the pros about voting early and getting your ballot in first is if you, say, submit the wrong signature, they'll send it back to you and say, hey, this signature doesn't match. Can you please send in one with the correct signature? So then you'll know. So that's one of the pros to voting early. But then after that, the whole process starts. They open up the ballot, they tear it apart, and put it in the machine and go through that process. But that all starts at 8. The signature checking can happen before 8, but all the stuff that involves the open ballot has to happen after 8 p.m. on Tuesday. Yeah, is that the same thing?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think they check the signatures all like they're doing. There's like a whole group of people that all they do is like check those signatures.
That's
Right,
crazy.
they've got to be doing some tallies before 8 because at 8 she's got some results to read.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I mean that's when the
Yeah.
first. That's when the first. But I don't. Yeah, I'm not sure how far before they'd begun that tally. But yeah, the manual the lengthy process of like comparing the signatures. I mean, I would imagine they've started that process days before.
Yeah, that's right. She does have results at 8 o'clock. Like,
Yeah.
not obviously not the final results, but she has like.
No, I mean, yeah, I'm
a-
trying to think.
a
I mean,
number.
typically she might have, I don't know, 20 or 30% of the return ballots tallied. I mean, they're that when she talks, when she says that tonight, she'll say, yeah, of the votes that have been returned, this is, yeah. I don't know how she does, because they don't.
Well,
really,
it's going to be
'cause they don't-
different too because
well,
this is
yeah,
a new clerk too.
Well, and they don't really know how many ballots are going to come in, so they don't even know the percentage.
Right.
So it's just it's a number,
Number.
of the 5,000 ballots that have been returned.
So
Yeah.
and so has this many votes.
Yeah. Yeah. So what an interesting process.
Too bad Robin's not watching. She could tell us.
Yeah, she could.
Or the
Should have brought her in this morning too. She would have she could have set us all straight,
Right?
and she would have. Trust me.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, well, cool. Well, so you guys just recently have been pulled into the Nash campaign.
Yes.
Yeah. So how has that been? I mean, is that the first time that you guys have been pulled into a campaign like that?
Well,
I mean, like paid. He's paying you to do stuff, right? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, this is I originally started with Bobby Levy's
That's right, yeah,
campaign.
yeah.
And so I was getting paid to work on that one, but Seda, she doesn't have an opponent right now, so she's not having to campaign as hardcore as Todd has. And Todd's campaign manager reached out to me. We were having a conversation, and she just asked me, and of course I called Bobby first. I was like, hey, is this okay with you?
Yeah.
And she said, of course. And I've had a fantastic time. I
Yeah.
mean, I've only done really local elections, and so getting to like drive to all of the counties that the Senate represents, it's been really exciting meeting all these different commissioners, meeting these local leaders and networking. It's honestly one of the best experiences I've had, even though I cannot wait for it to be over.
Yeah.
It's one of the greatest experiences I've had. And
Yeah, because you guys are both in school too.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah. I got that other thing going on, right?
yeah, I've got that education, on the side.
Yeah, I can't agree more with what everything as you just said. I've worked on some campaigns too, paid, but those are all local level, just county commissioners and stuff like that. And it's been really cool to be able to travel this beautiful district. I mean, it stretches from Wasco to Wallowa to Wheeler County. I call it the 3 W's because it's kind of it stretches over those 3 counties, but and everything in between. Really cool being able to meet the people, being able to get to know Todd better too. It's
Yeah.
awesome because there's a lot of driving.
Well, and in fact, I was with Todd the other day, and he told me that one of you got pulled over when. I'm sorry to spring that on you. Yeah.
My parents didn't know that, Brent, so here we are.
No, he said you were coming. He said you were coming through Stanley, and he said just about the time he said, "Yeah, hey, there's this is known for a speed trap."
Yeah, we were driving back, and I swear that sign said 45 when we left Hermiston, and I just kept it at a 40-45. And Todd, I'm talking on point, goes, "This is known for a speed trap." The lights turn on right behind me, and I'm freaking out at this moment in time because I have never been pulled over in my entire life. And Todd's super calm. He's like, "Oh, it happens." And I was so glad. They didn't give me a ticket. I got off with a warning, but I was still freaking out.
Yeah, well, you were only 10 over, is that right? Or
Yeah, only 10 over. And it was, I was like, but yeah, I was shaking my head. I was so scared.
That's funny. And here I bring it up, yeah.
There you go. Thanks a lot, Brent. Now everyone knows.
Well, yeah. No, and I forget where, so Todd and I were in a group and we were talking about this, and then that kind of sprung out that Stanley has that a large part of their city budget has been based upon the tickets that they get. Yeah.
Yep.
And it's really, because you kind of drop down, especially if you're coming, I guess if you're heading south, if you're heading south and you drop down, it's just really easy to, anyhow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where is Stanley? I've
So
never even
it's
heard of Stanley.
Stanfield up by Hermiston.
Stanfield.
Oh, I was
thank
like,
you.
what is
Thank you. Yeah,
Stanley?
Stanfield.
Okay.
Thank you.
I know
Yeah.
what Stanfield is.
Yeah.
I was like, where is Stanley? Like, there's a Stanley, Idaho. I think,
That's
but
what, and
I
that's
thought
what
you
I
were
get.
getting
That's what I got
confused.
confused. Yeah. So no, that's funny. So yeah. Well, so what are your observations? So we have a low voter turnout.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, well, we don't know for sure, but it's looking that way. Why do you guys think?
So yeah, how I look at the primary elections and what these are right now, it's not the championship, it's not the big election, it's the playoffs. It's
Okay.
the setup for that. And so just because it's the playoffs and not the Super Bowl, people care a lot less about it. And so generally we see lower voter turnout. However, this is historically low. One reason I'd give, and we were talking about this earlier, is there is not a competitive presidential primary right now. We know who the two candidates are going to be in this Super Bowl. It's going to be
Right.
Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. It's a rematch. And personally, what I think a lot of people are saying is that's not very inspiring to go out and vote. We've already seen this happen before, so people are like, well, maybe I'll stay home this time. I'm not going to fill out the ballot.
Yeah.
I also think a huge factor is 4 years ago we had this special thing called COVID going on, and a lot of people were, had nothing to do at home, and then here
I
you
see.
are, you have a ballot, and that's the one exciting thing of your life you could do because you can't go anywhere. And during that time, states had big impacts on people's lives, people's businesses, and I think that definitely encouraged people to get out and vote for the certain politicians that were going to push policies that certain people were inspired by. And I think that is the main reason. And then again, politics kind of sucks, and
Yeah.
people really don't like dealing with it, voting, and there's some people that are just not inspired by anyone. They're just so down and about. I mean, looking at our two presidential candidates, it's like, do we really? None of us wanted the remake. We were okay with the last movie. We didn't want a second one, and I think that kind of is what lowers turnout. Is people aren't inspired by our national leaders.
Yeah.
That would be my thought on it.
Yeah.
People are like, man, yay who won or yay who two. Like, man.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's kind of like the Niners versus the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. We just
Yeah.
saw this a couple of years ago.
Except for those are both good football teams.
I don't know. Maybe it's me. I'm a Cowboys fan, and I was like, oh, I don't want to see this again. Like, it's going to be a good game, but do you want to watch it?
Yeah. So, so what else? Go over the local races. What are what local ones are going on, and so we have the commissioner. I don't know. Just drop down through those real quick. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you just mentioned commissioner. So there's the Union County 9, one of the most populated races I've seen for a local race.
Yeah.
Yeah, Isaac, I believe it's your grandma, right? That
Yes.
is stepping down, and so the seat's opening up, and everyone, including someone in this room,
That almost
decided
sounded
to
like
run.
a joke. Your grandma, man. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. What do you
No.
want to share about that?
Yeah. Why do you think there are 9? I mean, people have asked me that. Why do you think there are so many candidates running for that race?
I have an evil reason why I
Yeah,
think
go-
so many people are running.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good wage,
Yeah.
for a commissioner, and especially if you're wanting to settle down or retire and serve your community, you can do that for a pretty decent wage, and it just went up. And I know that could seem, I'm not trying to say any candidates are, but I think that's definitely a
went
motive.
up?
It did go up. It did go up. So I think that's a big factor. And I'd like to think, especially with the events that went on for 4 years there with COVID, with where our local community leaders actually had a real impact on what happens.
Yeah.
I think that inspired a lot of people to be like, I want to be in that position next time when the world goes crazy, to make decisions. And then I also like to think that my grandma did a really good job in that position, and people were inspired by her leadership, so hopefully, to take up that position.
Yeah. Has she been? I mean, has she been before she was commissioner? Was there a time when she was kind of like inspired you towards politics? Did you have any idea she had interests in running or anything?
When she was first elected, I was 14 years old.
Right.
So I wasn't really focused on elections and stuff at that time. But when she ran, I didn't even know what she was running for. I was
Right.
like, I know you're running for office, so like, are you president or something like that? But She definitely has inspired me throughout my political career, because something she's always told me is, Isaac, I'm not a politician, I'm a public servant,
Right.
and there's a big difference,
Right.
and I 100% agree there is a big difference. And so
Yeah.
she's definitely someone who's inspired me to take up leadership positions to serve my community.
Yeah. Well, and without a doubt. And I've said this before, that the only reason I'm running is because there's a vacancy. I'm pretty happy, I'm pretty happy with the commissioners. I've said that over and over again.
They're a fantastic
The
team.
the mix is just super unique,
Yeah.
and that's pretty hard to beat.
Yeah, and my joke I always make is, I know the commissioners real well. One of them is my grandma, the other one was my ag advisor, and I've got to know Matt over the years pretty well too. So I've had some pretty good ins when it comes to our commissioners.
Yeah, no, and so, and super interesting, the 9 candidates that are running from a wide variety of backgrounds and stuff.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think it's going to come down to like 30, 40 votes, in my opinion. I think it's going to be a tight race. Every ballot will count in that one.
Yeah, no, that'll be really interesting to see how that. And I've been in it, for 6 months now, and I just don't have a guess of how it's all.
Yeah. And that's the fun thing about local elections. There's no polling. No one knows what's going to happen until election night.
Yeah.
So tonight is going to be really big for that. And so to give a little background on how this actually works, so there's 9 candidates. If no one candidate breaks the threshold for a majority, which is 50% plus 1, then it'll go to a 2-person runoff. So just want to give that background for the audience. So there's a really good chance that with 9 candidates, we're going to see 2 people mano a mano go at it in November.
Yeah.
I would almost guarantee that.
I would almost.
If I was a betting man, I'd put my money on that.
I mean, just doing the math, 9 candidates, and like if say each one's equally liked, 11% for each, it's gonna be hard to hit 50%, much less more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, and so talk for a minute about District 29 race with Todd Nash that you guys, but don't be biased toward Todd. Yeah, you have to talk objectively about about that race.
Yeah. So we hosted a debate. What was that? A month ago now.
Yeah.
Something like
Wow.
that. Yeah. We hosted a debate. We have four. Frankly, I'd say pretty good candidates. So we have Todd Nash, of course, who's a 2-term county commissioner out of Wallowa County.
And just for the and you were not working for Todd Nash before that debate.
Of course. No. The debate got us the job.
Okay, good.
So we were like,
Okay,
you know
all
what?
right.
Let's go for it. So yeah, he's a 2-term county commissioner of Wallowa County, so our northern neighbors, immediate past president of the Oregon Cattlemen's Association. We also have Dave Drotzman, he's been mayor of Hermiston for 14 years, 11 years, so a really long time, another public servant out there. And he's the president of the Oregon League of Cities. We also have Jim Doherty, who was a county commissioner out of Morrow County. And then Andy Huey, who is he's a student up at Eastern, and is he's actually the director of political affairs for the student government that Isaac and I are both involved in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Andy is a little bit of a hawk. I mean, political hawk, I call him. I mean, he's just like he's in the minutia. Would you say that? I mean, is that a good definition?
He's definitely in there. Yeah, we'll say that.
Yeah. And what makes him interesting is, I admire him running, and Tanya actually voted for him. She told him that, but he wouldn't even be old enough to be a candidate. I mean, if he was elected, he's not going to even be old enough until after the election. Is that right?
Not quite. So his birthday lines up really well. So he essentially turns 21, which is the legal minimum requirement.
Right.
And then inauguration day happens. Yeah. So he, like we said in the debate, he will be the youngest state senator in Oregon history.
Yeah.
And it'll be a really hard record to break just because of how close his
birthday is.
Right. So yeah, and then I did some very brief research, but I couldn't find any other state or anyone else in the state legislatures in any other state that has been younger than Andy. So he might be the youngest one in U.S. history. Oh. Which would be kind of crazy.
That would be crazy.
Yeah.
So, and then the judges race, which has been so there are 2 judge positions that are up right now. Powers is running unopposed, and then Jared Boyd and Wes Williams are running
Yep.
against each other, and that's been a heated debate.
See, those are the most exciting ones to watch, getting to travel around in some of the forums, the judges are there with the Senate candidates, and I'm always really excited to watch the judges one because, it's very entertaining to watch Williams and Boyd go at each other there. I heard one spectator came up to me once and said, I don't think the judges are going to get a beer together afterwards. And I'm like, I don't think they are either. So that's definitely a heated race there. And I'm really excited to see how that one plays out, because some people don't know is that race, it's Wallowa County and Union County that are voting for those two.
Right.
And some people don't know that. I didn't know that originally because they're
courts,
circuit
right,
courts.
yeah.
Yeah. And so, but one interesting thing I will say, while this race is really divisive and heated, I'm glad it's happening because we have a history of seeing a lot of judges be appointed by the governor. And I don't know about you guys, I don't really want someone over in Salem picking who should be the judge for Union County. And so I'm glad that we're picking that here.
Why have they been appointed by the governor in the past? Because we haven't elected them, or what? I mean, how does that happen?
Down or something happens.
Yeah,
So
usually it's either they die or they decide to step down, retire, whatever.
Before
their term's over, and then it's the governor's job to appoint.
Being a judge has got to be a stressful job.
Oh, I bet.
It doesn't matter what your decision, somebody hates you.
Right.
Doesn't matter if you put them in jail or not. Either the DA hates you or the criminal hates you. So that job sucks.
Yeah.
Exactly. And what we've seen is like an incumbent judge will be in there for, let's say, 4 years and decides to retire. The governor appoints someone to fulfill that. And then they go into the next election as an incumbent and no one wants to run against them.
Are they 6-year terms?
Yeah.
5 years?
I think they're 6.
Oh, they're 6?
6?
Yes, they're 6
They are
years.
6 too.
Okay.
Because I think 2018 was the last one. And
Yeah.
I heard,
That was when
Williams
Wes
talked
Williams was elected.
Okay.
Well, and what's interesting about this judge's race is I've never even given two thoughts to the actual position and what it entailed and how sucky it would be, so that's been really interesting I don't know Powers except for, I've met him and but I know him. I get this idea that one of the reasons he wants to go to the forums, and pardon me if I'm wrong, but part of it is like, hey, I want you guys to know what it is that we do. He's, these judges they sit in a very formal position, and of course everybody in the courtroom knows who that person is and what it is that they're doing, but outside of the courtroom, they really don't talk much. They don't have much exposure or much of a voice, or you don't know who they are. So that's been interesting. To see, to hear them talk about, kind of the inner workings of what goes on there.
Yeah, because it's such an important position. When you go to court, you want someone who's going to be impartial, have that judge demeanor, and give you a fair case. And so that's why it's good that we're choosing it as residents of Union and Wallowa counties.
Right. Well, and it's funny, one of the things I've thought about through this process is that, bringing bad guys to justice, that is a long process. And not everybody who is accused is a bad person or deserves justice or deserves to be in jail, or whatever. But if you have somebody who really did commit some kind of a crime and they are arrested, then a case has to be built against them. And that case, and we're friends with Cody. Cody's on the show here. My son-in-law is a sheriff's deputy, and all of that process is extensive. You're building the evidence against that particular person, showing that they really did commit this, and then the prosecutor has to say, okay, there's enough evidence for this to go forward, and then the prosecutor has to present that case, and then the judge has to be able to see that. Well, so there's the system is long. It's a long process because you want to filter through and not have the injustice of having somebody put in jail that wasn't supposed to be there.
Yep.
But at the same hand, we're kind of seeing, crime is on the rise. repeated crime by repeated criminals is on the rise. And so, I mean, there's really a hunger everywhere. Somebody said recently, yeah, the one common thing that is happening both in urban and rural areas is everybody's tired of crime. Everybody's tired of crime being unpunished. That's kind of what they were, saying. So.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen that. So, like, during your guys' commissioner forum out there at the high school hosted by the Chamber of Commerce, that was one or two of the questions, of their limited questions, because there's so many of you guys, right, was, what are you going to do about crime, what are you going to do about drugs?
Right.
And so that's just the fact that was being asked for local elections here in Union County shows of how much of an issue it is here.
Right.
So.
And I think what you're starting to see is more of a rise in petty crime, not so much the major like murders and stuff like that. That stuff has gone down over time. But what people are now starting to notice are the small crimes, the petty crimes, the people going on your property in the middle of the night and stuff like that. And I think that's what people is starting to catch people's attention, is the petty crime.
Well, and part of that is driven by drugs.
Yes.
I mean, so if you have a drug user and they're trying to pay for a habit, and then, I mean, they're very often looking for
Copper wire.
Yeah.
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 Anything
Yeah,
to
they're
say.
looking. They're doing burglaries to pay for the habit. Yeah.
Even cans. I mean, I'll admit.
Yeah.
What's that?
Cans.
I had a big bag of cans at the last place I lived, and they were stolen one day.
Yeah.
Dude, where I live on the alley and I call it Slum Alley. It's the alley that runs from Max Square. I live right on the corner of that alley, and man, they fight. The people fight over cans.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
crazy. It's but we don't have a lot of crime in LaGrange.
No.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says. This is not a high crime rate here. Like it's not. It's a safe place to live still. Like it's not.
Yeah.
I've lived in like Southern California, Riverside. I've lived at like right by the border in San Diego. Way more crime. I mean, like dudes. We had a little sliding glass door in our apartment, and it had like the 6 foot tall, like 6 foot concrete pad with the fence around it. Out the apartment for your backyard. And numerous times people were in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And it's only 6 feet. Like they're hopping over there trying to get your bike, whatever. Like, we're very fortunate here, actually.
We are, but we do see. I mean, that thing that started in COVID of homelessness. I mean, we see that more and more in LaGrange. I see that more when I drive. I mean, you just see that. And so, I mean, something is things are changing, and the people in Union County and LaGrange or wherever they want to preserve what it is that they've had. And you can't blame them. You can't blame them for that.
Yeah.
So, what other? I mean, am I forgetting any other local races that are going on?
I mean, the only other one I've mentioned I'd really say is Representative Levy is unopposed.
Okay.
So our state rep, who's going to be representing us in Salem for the next 2 years, is running unopposed.
Yeah.
I think she'll probably be the Republican and the Democratic nominee. Is that right, Isaac?
How that happened last year was weird. So I don't quote me on any of this.
Okay. Don't quote.
But my understanding is during the primary, if Democrats write in Bobby Levy, she gets the Democrat nomination there, even though she's a Republican running. I think that's how it works. I'm not 100% certain. It confuses me. I don't know how you could be the Democrat and Republican, but that's happened before in the past. So most likely it's going to happen again. I'm not sure, but we'll see.
We'll see, yeah.
So let's talk about the Secretary of State, Oregon Secretary of State position. Yeah, which has been a little janky. Is that the word? I don't know. It's a little. Yeah, I mean.
I guess how so? How is it janky?
Well, I don't know. So then I don't know the two people. So that's the one that Elizabeth Steiner.
She's running for.
She's running for state treasurer.
Okay, well let's talk about that one.
Okay.
State treasurer. Yeah, that's the one I was talking about. Yeah.
Okay. And just for reference, the state treasurer essentially runs like the pension fund for the state and all the finances and stuff. Just so you guys know in the audience.
Yeah.
And so Elizabeth Steiner is running against another Democrat, though, who was a Republican.
Jeff Gold. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep, Jeff Goodman.
Goodman.
Goodman. It's Gud man. Something it's Goodman, right?
Huh.
Goodman.
And do you know any of the background behind that? Why he switched from being Democrat to Republican, or for the other way around, Republican to
I
Democrat?
don't know if
I believe we both met him at one of the
We did
campaign
meet
events.
him,
One of
and-
the many people.
Yeah.
And the reason why he moved to the Democratic Party is he said the Republican Party left him. So
Okay.
he said he's a Bush-style Republican. He's not a Trump-style Republican.
Okay.
So like a Republican from 20 years ago. And so because of that, he feels that the Democratic Party represents him more.
Okay.
And then he also made a little bit of a joke that he can actually win as a Democrat. So
Interesting.
we'll see, yeah.
So, and they don't have, so are there any Republicans in that race at all?
there's 3, right?
I-
Or no, for the treasurer, it's just 1.
I believe for the treasurer, it's just Brian Boquist.
It's just Brian
Who's a
Boquist.
former state senator. He just got 113, meaning that when he walked out this last session, and he spent more than 10 days unexcused, the recent proposition that the state voted on that said if you miss more than 10 days unexcused absence, that you cannot run for re-election.
Right.
So that got applied to him, so he can no longer run for state senate. So now he's running for state treasurer. And so he's the Republican. He's going to be the nominee on that side. So it's going to be Brian Boquist versus either Elizabeth Steiner or Jeff Goodman.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And I met Elizabeth Steiner
Yeah.
because I guess she's kind of helped the hospital get some of their funding for that expansion process. And so I mean, she called herself the most rural Democrat. I can't, she had a little title for herself, but the bottom line is that she says that she has a vested interest in rural. I don't know.
And she has a really big background in healthcare too, which
Yeah,
is another
yeah,
reason.
right, because she's a
Yeah.
physician. Yeah.
Yeah, and so she's a very big advocate for that, and that's one reason why she was so supportive of the Grand Run Hospital
Yeah.
as well. I know you were
Yeah.
about to say something, Isaac, before I cut you off.
Nope, I got nothing to say on.
So
I got nothing to say on Senator Steiner.
so here's a question that so all of the guys in the debate said that they would walk out if they needed to.
Yes.
So how do you feel about the walkouts?
I think
Well, first of all, describe what that is for people who might not know.
Yeah,
what
so
that process
basically
is.
when the state reps or the state senators walk out, basically what they're doing is they're not going into the floor session, and the floor cannot conduct business. That means vote on bills, discuss bills if there isn't a quorum met. And so there's a certain number of senators that have to be present in order for quorum to be held. And so what the Republicans, when people say we're in when it's a supermajority, that means that one party has 2/3 in each house. That means they have 2/3 in the House of Representatives and 2/3 in the Senate. And that's where it doesn't matter if Republicans walk out because they have enough quorum to do whatever work they want to. But we don't have that right now. Right now, it is the Republicans can walk out and there won't be quorum. And so what the senators did this last long session is they walked out, and when they walked out, they just stayed in their offices. They didn't go to the floor. It's not like they left the Capitol or
Right.
anything. They're still all in there talking and mingling, but they're just not going to the floor to conduct business. And if they have 10 absences, then that means they cannot run for re-election in the next cycle. So,
Okay.
and if one of the current candidates, I'm going to use Todd for example, was to walk out, he would have 10 days where he's walking out, and then after 10 days, he wouldn't be able to run for re-election. And I know some candidates, Senate candidates, are challenging that in the courts, and I believe the Oregon Supreme Court said that it stands. I'm not 100% certain. Yeah, so who knows if it could go federal, but that's kind of where it's at right now, kind of what walkouts mean. It's where if the certain party doesn't want to discuss a bill, or it's a bill that really affects, like for example, the cap and trade was a big one. That's where the state reps walked out. And I believe this last one was HB 2002. That was a big bill. It had to do with abortion and transgender issues. And so that was one where it was a big issue and Republicans didn't feel heard. So they walked out to stop business until Democrats would negotiate or move on to another bill. You know, they wanted more time for that bill.
Yeah, and if I can just add something on to that, I think that the walkouts are a really valuable tool to the Republican Senate. So what we've seen over the last, frankly, decade is the Democrats get together, they have their slate of agenda items for the session, they're like, we're going to pass this. And some of that stuff, like in our last long session, is really controversial. So HB 2002 had stuff to do with abortion. It had stuff to do with essentially like transitional surgeries for gender. It also had to do, and then 2005, which had to do a lot with gun stuff, so essentially reaffirming a lot of the 114 prop stuff. So 3 really controversial issues, right? What we've seen is the Senate get together on the Democratic side and be like, we're going to pass this. Cool? All right. And then they put it to the floor, and so Republicans have a really hard time negotiating when the Senate is so Democratic.
Right.
And so it's a tool for them to be like, okay, guys, we don't like this. We're going to step out, not let, or make it so that you cannot have meetings, and then we'll come back to the table. It's a tool that they use.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, and I know the answer to this, but this has been used on both sides.
Yeah, if you asked Mark Simmons back when he was Speaker of the House, the Democrats walked out on the House for
Similar,
for similar issues.
For whatever reasons on that. Yeah. So
And we've seen it in like other states like Texas.
right.
that was a big
but
one.
it really is a nuclear option. I mean,
It is.
And so, and I guess I'm not, so it's, but what I hear from, people that are your age that are on the other side, it's like, we just want them to do their job. We just want them to show up. And why is that not the right answer?
Well, if I was a senator and I decided to walk out, if I was elected to represent a certain value, and I felt that value was going to be attacked or destroyed within a certain bill, I feel as though it was my responsibility to walk out so that bill doesn't get passed. So I think that's definitely the mentality that a lot of those senators had. Like Senator Hansel had the mentality that this bill wasn't what his constituents wanted.
Yeah.
So his job was to walk out to represent their best interests.
Yeah.
Whereas that the Democrat senator might have been feeling the interests of their constituents.
Yeah.
But I think it's a matter of differences in constituencies.
So here's an interesting question. So during that walkout, I was having a conversation. Well, it was one of the guys from the podcast, the Rational Republican.
I know
were you
you've
guys
been
both
on
on,
that.
or were you on that?
I was
It was Calvin
Yeah.
was on that.
And one of the things that one of those guys is married to a school teacher who was on strike at that time. And so then his question was as well, the initiative that was passed by the public that says that you can't take more than 10 days, you can't run. I mean, that could be applied to teachers also. Have you heard that? And why wasn't it, I guess?
I'm not educated on teacher protests
You
or
see what I'm saying?
strikes.
But you get the point is if you're a public official, whatever it might be, in this particular case, we've been talking about representatives and senators, and they do a walkout, then I mean, that initiative says that that's it, you can't run the next year.
I think it's because in 113 it specifically addresses legislators.
Okay, all
I
right.
don't think it goes all across state
Yeah.
positions. It just addresses legislators.
But wouldn't that be an interesting?
That would be interesting for sure. Yeah. I don't know how you would.
It never would have
Yeah,
passed.
I don't
'cause
think
the
it would have
unions
passed.
would've come
Yeah, it would have never.
against- I mean, that would ban the right to essentially strike.
To strike.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have a big Bill of Rights issue there on your hand, the right to protest and assembly. Yeah.
But that is the argument that the senators are making before the Supreme Court, right? Is that this is our right for free speech. I mean, that is.
Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
so.
I
I
believe
think,
it is.
Tim Knope, who was the minority leader of the Senate, is making that case, or did make that case, and I do believe it failed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what else is floating out there?
Yeah. So going back to statewide races, let's touch on the Secretary of State real quick.
Oh yeah. Okay.
We got a really interesting one. So we have Brian, or what is it, Dennis Lithicum,
Dennis Lithicum.
running against Brett Barker. So Dennis Lithicum is another one of those senators who got 113. So he's like, oh, I'm going to run for higher office. And Brett,
113th.
113.
113.
Okay. Yeah. That's funny. Okay.
Yeah, it's the verb I use for like.
There's a new language for that. Okay.
Right?
Got it.
Right? English language constantly evolving, right?
Yeah.
Versus, so Brent Barker was actually a Trump staffer who came back and is running for that. So that's going to be a really interesting one on the Republican side. I believe the Secretary of State race is pretty much wrapped up on the Democratic side. It's going to be current state treasurer and oh my gosh, Tobias Reed. That's probably who it's going to be. So that's going to be something really interesting to watch out for tonight, is kind of either more moderate Republican or a more Trump Republican, who's gonna win that race statewide? Because that's probably our top race across the state. And something else I want to talk about while we're on statewide
Attorney General.
is the Attorney General,
Yeah.
which is super fun. So we actually have our neighbors to the north, Wallowa County. One of their own, Will Lathrop, is running for that seat. I'm personally a fan of him. I'm also just a fan of people on the east side run for office, but. And he's run for Attorney General, has a really interesting resume. Actually served as a prosecutor over in Africa for a while. I mean, Isaac's heard this story a million times along with me, but really interesting story, really good one to look up. And he's running against Democrat, Dan Rayfield, who was the current Speaker of the House. And so you kind of have someone who's been embedded in Oregon politics for a while, and a guy who's been popping in and out, and so it's going to be really interesting to see that clash of ideas and how they shape up. Did you have something to say on either of those?
No, I've met Will.
Yeah.
And he does have a very compelling story.
Yeah.
And interesting guy. Yeah.
Yeah. I have, if we want to do one, I think really interesting one to watch out for tonight is it's a federal race. It's Oregon's Congressional District 5. Okay. So this represents the rural parts of Portland, which I know is kind of an oxymoron, but that's like Clackamas County area, Happy Valley, that kind of area, and stretches down all the way to Deschutes County, which is Redmond and Bend, and so it includes everything in between that, Madras and stuff like that. So that district has an incumbent Republican. It was gerrymandered to be a Democratic district, but in 2022, Lori Chavez-DeRemer won it, so she's a freshman congresswoman, and she's the incumbent. She's running unopposed for this primary. However, the Democrats are running two candidates against her for this primary. And so one is Jamie McLeod Skinner, who lost to her in 2022. She's owns a law firm, lawyer, but lost her in 2022, versus one of, I would say, I would call her Lori's rival, which is Janelle Bynum, who beat her 2 times when they were running for State House to go to Salem. So now we're going to see who wins this. It's either Janelle Bynum or Jamie McLeod Skinner. And it's also kind of, there's a schism in the Democratic Party. The Democrats in Oregon want to run Jamie, while the Democrats in the federal level want to run Janelle.
Oh, interesting.
And so this is a super purple district. I don't know if you guys know this, but the U.S. House of Representatives has a majority of 1 Republican.
Yeah.
And so this race is so close that, say, everything else in America stands still. Everyone like no movement, and just this one race in Oregon flips. The Congress goes to the Democrats.
Wow.
If everything else stayed still.
Huh.
So Oregon has a really big effect on the federal level this year, and who holds that gavel. And so it's going to be really interesting to see who wins that today, and then how that goes up this November. So yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Anything on that one, Isaac?
No, it's exciting. If you don't think your vote matters, it really does. Your
really
vote
does
could
that.
be the deciding factor of who leads Congress right now.
And Lori only won by a couple thousand votes last November, or in 2022, like a couple thousand. It's super close.
Well, and all great information. We're about at the end of our time. So just one more time, remind people they can vote, drop stuff off in their ballots by 8 o'clock tonight.
Yes.
In the boxes by 8 o'clock
Yes.
tonight.
Drop it in the box.
in the boxes.
Make sure to vote, guys.
Yeah.
Just please get it out there. We know from the numbers that you guys aren't voting. So, so yeah, please turn out.
Yeah. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, no, it's
And,
always a pleasure. We
yeah,
could talk politics for hours,
I
Brent,
think we
you know.
could. Yeah. Yeah. What did I call you guys? The political
Junkies.
Yeah.
I prefer fanatic.
If that happened, I'd need a recliner or something. Just take a snooze. You want to hear my favorite political joke?
Sure.
Have you heard about the new presidential value meal at McDonald's?
No.
Yeah, you order whatever you want, and the person after you pays for it. It's a good one.
Oh, that's funny. I have heard of people though who when there was a really short line, they get up. So they pull. A car leaves, they pull up, and the guy goes, yeah, the guy before you just paid for the meal, and so then the guy who pulls out knows that he's probably going to pay it, he might pass it on, And so then when he pulls up a second time, he goes around the block, pulls through.
Gets back in line.
Yeah, gets back in line and says, yeah, but knowing he goes, like, he ordered like 20 Big Macs, this huge number of stuff, yeah, because it's on somebody else's bill. That is government right there. That's a good example.
And you're running for office?
Yeah.
That's right.
Like state workers.
All right, man.
Let's do
Get
it.
us out of here, yeah.
May 21st, on this day, 1819, the first bicycles in the United States were introduced in New York City. They're called Swift Walkers. Swift Walkers. Kind of makes sense.
1819?
1819. 1881, on this day, American Red Cross was founded by Clara Barton. 1908, on this day, the first American horror movie, silent film Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, premieres in Chicago. 1918, on this day, U.S. House of Representatives passes an amendment allowing what?
1918.
Yes.
1918.
Oh.
1918.
Women to vote.
Oh, I thought that was
1918.
21.
1932, after flying for 17 hours from Newfoundland, Amelia Earhart lands near Londonderry, Northern Ireland, completing the first transatlantic solo flight by a woman. And then finally, 2013, on this day, Microsoft announces the release of Xbox One.
I remember that.
On this day in 1994, the #1 song in America was I Swear by All For One.
I swear.
They're not the original ones that sang that song.
Oh, okay.
I think that's a country song originally. It's like John Michael Montgomery.
Yeah,
I
I
think.
think you're right.
The quote of the day comes from Waylon Jennings. I may be crazy, but it keeps me from going insane. I like that quote. I
going
may
for
be
That's a
crazy,
good
but
one.
it keeps me from going insane. That's it.
All right.
Tonight we'll go live like 10 minutes to 8 or 5 minutes to 8, right around there, right here on EOA Live on the network. And yeah, we'll have some results. I mean, they're just, preliminary, but you'll get kind of an idea what's going on.
Yep. All right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate you
Thank
being
you.
here. Yep.
Yeah.
We'll see you soon right here.